before we close out. And we found a clip that someone requested, and I wanted to have your permission to play it. It is the part when Sister basically was singing "Giving Up," and the reason why that was requested, I spoke about it many times on my show, being a survivor of domestic violence, and I think that's why I latched on to Sister's role so much, because I've been through that, and I advocate for women who are going through it, been through it, or think that a man showing signs, And
it
was rough.
That's a hard one. Oh, that's a rough
one.
Definitely
is.
I've been there. Not real bad. I didn't hang around long enough. It only took a couple of slaps, and I was like, nope.
Wow.
Yeah. It's so
took me a
easy
long
to get
time.
trapped. Well, it's easy to get trapped, especially if you have children.
And that's exactly what happened with my situation. It was like, well, if you leave, I know where your parents live. I know where to pick the kids up, and it was like a trap. And it was a scary situation, very scary.
It is scary. They'll kill you, girl. They'll kill you.
Yeah, and it's so amazing because the gentleman that I'm totally in love with right now, he and I talk about this, and he never says, well, why didn't you just leave, or why did you stay, or he doesn't judge me on it. And I've had guys like, oh, you were stupid, why did you stick around? And it gave them that inclination that they can do it too. And I love the fact that I can express what happened without being sappy and feeling sorry for myself, but being able to share it, because, again, there's another woman, a young lady that was just like me, that needs to hear that you can get out of it. And I think the hardest part about it was, leaving and staying gone. And I think that a lot of women go through that. The leaving part can be easy.
But especially with children, because,
yes,
there's so many levels. That's such a complex issue. You don't want to take the children's father from them. If he's not abusing them, you don't want to take him from them. But if he's abusing you every time you're around him, you have to remove yourself from the situation. It's really complex, but I tell you what, it's not about feeling guilty or shame-based about it. It's not you. It's not the victim. People like to blame the victim. And like you said, say, well, why did you stay? Well, there's too many reasons. There's too many things to try to explain why a person stays. My mother was abused. My father was very abusive to her. She did not leave.
Wow.
And he was abusive to me. Fortunately, not sexually, but he killed my animals in front of me, which is as bad to me, for me, as sexual abuse.
Right.
For someone like me who lives for animals and doesn't have children. I don't have children. So my animals are my children, have always been. So it's just anybody that doesn't get it, it's like, I just say move away from the conversation, because you can't change people.
Right.
That's really the bottom line. If they want to change, that's different.
Right.
But you can't change people's minds, and you cannot win an argument with a sociopath. I just heard that on Bill Maher's show the other night.
And it makes so much sense.
Panel, yes, he was talking about Trump. He said, look, you can't win an argument with a sociopath.
Yeah.
You can't.
You're right. You're right. And that's exactly what I dealt with. Maxine wrote the show, and she said, I love the conversation that you ladies are having, but can we talk about some stuff that's happening with black women every day, as well as other women, in parentheses. We've found so far 4 women who've been burnt, killed, found in freezers, or missing and then later found dead, and 3 out of the 4 have been pregnant. What is your stance on that, and what do you think that we can do to either help your voice or if you can help us? This has got to stop.
It does have to stop. It does have to stop. And Maxine, I'm so sorry that, obviously if this is the subject she wishes to talk about, it means that in some way it's affecting her life on some level. And I'm sorry for that, for her. My heart goes out to all the women who are suffering through this. But as we discussed, it's so complex There's so many levels to this, and there's so many ways that women get hooked into relationships with men. And, you know, there are countries where it's all right to kill your wife, like in India. They burn them to death. And they don't go to jail for it. There's no penalty over nothing. Over nothing.
Right.
If they just accuse them of adultery, they can stone them to death or burn them to death. And they burn them. They find all these women, you know, burnt up in kitchens in India, and the guy doesn't serve any jail time. So part of it is a cultural thing. I think part of it for black folks, unfortunately, is our black men carry a very heavy weight on their shoulders. Yes. You know, the weight of being disrespected and beaten and whipped and enslaved and watching their women get raped for many years by their slave owners and being disrespected in their jobs and not being able to move ahead and move forward in their jobs and make the same equivalent money as the white counterparts that are doing the same job. So they have a very heavy load that they're carrying with this institutionalized racism. Yes. And unfortunately, the only person they have to take it out on is the wife and the children. They come home from a dead-end job where they can't get ahead and they're being abused psychologically, emotionally at work and put down by white folks. And they come home and they take it out on their wives, which is not an excuse. It doesn't make it excusable or acceptable.
Correct.
But at least we can know from whence it comes. Okay?
Right.
Where did it start? Where did it come from? Why are there so many broken black families? Well, look at the way we started out over here.
Exactly. And that was my argument, too.
Yeah. We had everything stacked against us in the first place. So how far do they expect us to have come in these few years since we've been able to vote, since 1965? I mean, people act like it was 1626. It was 1965. We were still in the back of the bus.
Exactly. Some people's parents' age, when they're like, oh, just forget about it. It happened so long ago. Really? Well, if your parents can talk about it, it's not that long ago.
That's exactly. And anyway, if they can talk about the Holocaust, black people enslaved were a Holocaust. That's the Holocaust. We went through a Holocaust. We just don't call it that. We call it slavery. But it was a Holocaust. Millions and millions of black people were abused and killed and raped and tortured and tormented and, you know, men were castrated and they paraded them through the street and lynched. It's going to take a minute, and not only that, here's the thing to remember. A whole lot of those people that were standing around smirking while they were lynching our grandfathers are still walking around amongst us.
Whoops. Well, on that note, we're going to go ahead and play that clip, Giving Up, because you are 1,000% right. And I have something I'm going to share with you after we finish that clip. And, we also have to mention that today, 21 years ago, was I want to say alleged, but I can't say that on the air. The announcing of Tupac Shakur leaving this earth. However, I have my own personal views on that, and we'll talk about that when we come back.
Yeah, me too.
We're going to put on this part of Sparkle, and when this clip is finished, I want to hear your thoughts. What was going through your mind when this part played? Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back.
giving up. So hard to do. Lord knows I try, but I just can't turn him loose. When my light of hope is burned dim, but in my heart I pray that my love and faith in the man will bring him back someday. Yeah, yeah. Whether or not he knows it, you know my man really needs me too. You know the man is all I got. And giving up is so hard to do. Hey, giving up.
That part was, I think, even to this day, I know what's going to happen, and I still cry on that part. What was the feeling, the emotion in the room when you did that part? You know, and it's a double question, because Sister had the voice of the whole entire group. Sister was the flyest out of the entire group, and Sister had the most personality, you know, savoir-faire and elegance with her. And to see her at that low point in the movie was like an emotional roller coaster for a lot of women, because, again, you know, you'd rather give up to be with someone you love sometimes than to walk away. So
Yes.
What was it that you went through personally and fictitiously as a character when that part came on?
I was actually thinking about my mother and father's relationship.
Wow.
Because it was that tumultuous. And it really was, it was hard to grow up in a household as I did. It was a very dysfunctional household in Detroit. We were very, very poor. No, we weren't very, very poor. Let me take that back. What we were a factory working family. My father was a bricklayer at Ford Motor Company. And all the kids at school thought I was a bougie, light-skinned girl whose father was a doctor, and they thought I lived in a big mansion. And when they would come to my house to play with me on weekends, they were shocked. They were like, "We thought you lived in a mansion." I was like, "Well, why would you think that?" They were like, "I don't know, just the way you look." My father was illiterate. He could not read or write. And my mother was a Swedish, Finnish, practically immigrant. She was brought over as a child from Finland and married quite young, married my father when she was 17, and really didn't know what, you know, all that she thought she knew. And we struggled. We didn't realize it as kids because we always had food on the table, and I went to a Catholic school, and we wore our uniforms, and, you know, I had to go to Mass every day and blah, 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 which is total bullshit, but I had to do it. And I didn't know we were struggling. They never let on to us that we were, but of course we were. But I was thinking about my mother and father and their arguments and their fights and how violent my father would get when he drank, and how she never would leave him. She never left him.